This is now cold. That is a cold drink. But that's cool. Alright, so we are here. We are ready with yet another little bookmas video. I feel like they are endless. Well, there are 12 of them, so they're not endless, but we're getting to the end. Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hello, I am Laura. I talk about books, I read books, I sometimes do occasional bookish challenges and fun book themed videos. And so I thought today, why not look to the future, since we're approaching the end of the year and the end of Bookmas, and do a 26 of 2026. So it's quite similar to what I did in 25, but it's for next year. So 25 of 25 was looking back at the 25 top books of 2025, and 26 for 26 is going to be 26 books that I want to read the next year, 2026. So a lot of these are from my physical TBR, because obviously my goal is always to get down my TBR. A couple of them are just books that I'd really like to read for various reasons. Some of them will help me with my goal, that is to branch out even more next year, because I branched out quite a bit this year. Read books that weren't my typical fantasy romantasy books. Honestly, some of them were my favourite books of the year, and so next year I want to go even further and read even more different genres and authors and even time periods, so books that were written recently or books that were written years ago. Enough yapping. I'm sure you're all here to see what books I will be reading, what 26 books I will pick out to be my ultimate reads of next year. Of course, this is really just a guideline, a kind of basis so that I know what I want to read, but if I don't read them, I'm also not going to beat myself up about it. It's just it's a fun time. We don't take things too seriously over here. But without further ado, sit down, grab yourself a warm, or lukewarm in my case, drink, and let's get on into the video. Let's get into the list. Got a little Fable list, 26 for 26, and so yeah, let's just get into it. There's not really any particular order to these books, they're kind of just put in there randomly. Okay, so the first book that I want to read next year, well, maybe not the first book, but it'll definitely be in January, is Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation. And that is because, as I'm sure many of you know, they are making a Netflix movie, and I just think it looks really fun, and I really enjoyed the two other Emily Henry books that I read. So I think that I would really like to read this book before the movie comes out, so that I can have a better idea of the movie, and also so I can judge the movie through the lens of the book, if that makes sense. This book is about Poppy and Alex, who are best friends. They basically go on holiday together every summer. And then something happened one summer that kind of ruins that, and then this is 2 years after that summer and how they go back on holiday together for one last trip, and then what happens. It's a romance, of course. It's Emily Henry, she does write great romance books, and yeah, I feel like also what better book to read in January than a book about people going on holiday, you know, when I'm just here freezing to death in the cold city of Paris, just reading about people who are like on holiday on beaches. I feel like it'd be a perfect like escapism book. Next off, we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is a book that's on my physical TBR. I feel like this series is going to be a really good political high fantasy series. Ever since reading Throne of Glass, I have been looking for that, and I love that kind of thing. So I just think I will really enjoy this, and I think it'll be really interesting. So basically this follows Rin, who gets into Sinigard, which is the elite military school, and it's a surprise because for one, she's a girl, and for two, she is a peasant, so she has to fight against the prejudices of rival classmates. And basically I think this trilogy just follows her at school, and then also the Poppy War, I'm guessing. So that is the war between the Federation of Mugen and the Nakara Empire. And if it's anything like her other books, I know it will just be really intelligent and very sad, and also have commentary on actual world issues. I just think this will be a really interesting book. Moving on, we have Crooked Kingdom. So I put Crooked Kingdom on the list because I could only put one, but it really means to read the entire Shadow and Bone trilogy and then the entire Six of Crows duology, because I did try over the summer to get into that series, and because I was in a bit of a slump and the first book just isn't interesting, it was really not the right book to pick up while I'm in a slump. So I do think it was just a case of wrong time, but I think next year would be a better time to not restart the series, but pick up where I left off. So with Shadow and Bone book 2, and finish it and finally get to read Crooked Kingdom. So I am looking forward to that. It would feel really, really good to finally check that universe, the Grishaverse, off of my list. I'm looking forward to reading it. I think it'll be very fun. I know it'll be fun because I love Six of Crows and I cannot wait to reread that and rediscover the characters. Okay, so the fourth book that I would like to read in 2026 is one that helps me in my personal challenge of reading new authors, new genres, and new time periods of book releases. And that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. So basically, The Picture of Dorian Gray follows someone who wants to stay young forever, so they get a painting drawn, and that painting is basically like their soul or something. Their painting gets older and then they stay young, but apparently it's a good classic. Like, it's a classic that would be more appealing to the modern reader, so I just think it would be a good book to start my classics journey with. Next up, we have We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. So this one's kind of a random pick in that I've always been aware of it because it's been out for a while, so I kind of have always known about it. It's been on the fringe of my peripheral vision, all that. But they recently came out with a TV show, and I've just seen a few clips on it on TikTok, and it just seems very interesting. But before I watch the TV show, I'd very much like to read the book first. It is a suspense novel that follows a family hiding a jaw-dropping secret. So I don't really know anything about the plot, actually, but it just feels like it'd be an interesting book. And if it is a suspense novel, then that's not fantasy, that's not romance, that's different from what I read, so it adds to reading new genres. And I just think it could be fun and interesting. And I know it was popular back in the early days of Book Talk. It was one of the first wave of Book Talk books. Next up, so book number... who cares? We have Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. So this is the same as The Crooked Kingdom in that Nick and Charlie is the last book in the Heartstopper series, and so I really do want to read the entire Heartstopper series, and so I just put Nick and Charlie because it's the last one, so if I get to that one it means I've read all of the others. So Heartstopper, I have read the first 2 books and I've seen the series, and it follows Nick and Charlie. Nick, who is a rugby player, I think he's captain of the rugby team, and then Charlie, who is just more of a shy guy, a bit more withdrawn, and they get sat next to each other in class and they start up a friendship, and that friendship develops into something more, and it follows them and then their friend group as they go through like their school years, and I think it ends when they go off to uni. But basically Heartstopper is my all-time favourite TV show. It is my comfort watch. The book series, despite having read only the first 2 books, are my god tier book series, unthrownable. I love the characters, I love Alice Oseman, I love the world, so I very much look forward to actually being able to like say that I've read the entire series when I say that it's my comfort read, because otherwise people are going to judge me for saying it's my comfort read, my god tier series, and I've only read the first 2 books out of 6. Next up, we have the biggest book on my physical TBR, I think the biggest book that I will have ever read, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree. And yes, this is a huge book. So this is technically a standalone, although there have been spin-off series written, but this book itself is a standalone. It follows 3 main characters, and basically, so they're 3 separate people who I think at the beginning don't know each other, and then obviously you discover that they're connected, as it always is. This was kind of my white whale. I wanted to get it for so long, but every time I'd go to the one English bookstore, they didn't have it. It was out of stock, and then my family finally managed to get it for me on my birthday, and that was my birthday 2 years ago, when I was 18 and I'm now 20. It is a disgrace that like I searched so long for this book and I still haven't read it, but it's the size. It's daunting because it's so big, and I just know it's gonna take a lot of brain power and it's gonna take a while to read, but I really do want to read it because I think it would be really good. Again, it's a high stakes epic fantasy, which we know I love. I believe it is also sapphic in some parts. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But if it is, I mean, sapphic, epic, high stakes fantasy, I just know that I'm going to love this so much. Next up, we have Project Hail Mary. So another book that until recently I had very minimal interest in. I'd see people talk about on Book Talk and say it was really good, and I was kind of like, yeah, okay, but I don't read a lot of science fiction, so I wasn't that interested. And then I discovered they're making a movie with Ryan Gosling, and I love Ryan Gosling, so I was like, you know what? We're going to read this book before the movie comes out, and then we are going to watch the movie and, of course, judge the 2 compared to each other. It follows Ryland Grace, who is the sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission. He gets amnesia, I suppose, and can't even remember his own name, so he can't remember what he's trying to do. And I'm pretty sure the sun is dying. But I figure it could be an interesting book to read, and it would be, of course, expanding on genres I don't read, because I really don't read a lot of science fiction, and even less science fiction that's set in space. It's just not really my thing, and I think it would be pleasantly surprising. And so the next book on our list is Blood Over Bright Haven. So this is a standalone fantasy novel. It follows Siona, who studies magic and becomes the first woman admitted to the High Magistracy at the University of Magics and Industry. She gets paired up with a janitor because of sexism, I'd imagine, and that puts her research at risk. But she discovers that the janitor wasn't always a janitor. He was once more. And so they discover an ancient secret that could change the course of magic forever. if it doesn't get them killed first. It sounds like a different kind of fantasy than what I normally read. I don't read a lot of what's it called, dark academia fantasy, I think. I don't read a lot of that. I just feel like this could be very interesting. Flying through our physical TBR. So next up we have Air by Sabaa Tahir. So this is another one that is the last book in a series. So it's, I even have the first book of the series here. So technically it's two separate series, but The Ember and the Ashes. And so basically this is set either 10 or 20 years after this series. So this is a quartet. This is 4 books. I read these a couple, maybe 3-4 years back, and then I found out this came out, and at first I just thought this was interesting and I knew I liked the author, so I was like, I'll have to give it a read. And then I discovered it's actually in the same world and it's like a sequel spin-off. I don't think it's going to be a standalone. I think there's going to be a book 2, but it's not out yet. I'm not going to tell you the plot of this, can't be spoilers. Basically, The Ember and the Ashes follows Laia, who becomes a slave, and Elias, who is one of the Academy's finest soldier. It's set in a kind of a Roman Empire type world, which is very interesting, especially for fantasy. I don't really remember much of this plot. Basically, Laia and Elias, at first you get dual point of view, so at first they don't know each other, then they meet, and then they plot a way to, well, she escapes, I'm pretty sure, then they obviously overthrow the empire, that sort of thing, you know. A typical good fantasy series, overthrowing empires and looking great while doing so. But yeah, I read this series and I really, really enjoyed it, so I really am looking forward to doing a reread of this series and then reading Air and finding out like the continuation of this world and what happened after. Next up, yet another physical book, and that is The Knight and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. But basically we follow Sybil and the knight Roderick. I can't think of Roderick without thinking of the guy that's in all the edits, Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I think his name Roderick. You know, with like dark hair and he has like eyeliner. He's like the bad boy of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He's Roderick, I think. So every time I read Roderick, I'm just gonna picture him. But yeah, basically Sybil is a diviner, so she gets visions and premonitions, and Roderick is a king's knight. So basically the king comes and visits the diviners because he wants to know things about the future, and the diviners then start going missing, and so Sybil and Roderick, Knight Roderick, team up to figure out what is going on. I've never read a gothic fantasy series, so there we go. Expanding my horizons. I think I will just really enjoy this book, and it sounds very interesting. If I really like this book, I'll probably read the Shepherd King duology afterwards, because I do like a good duology. Next up, we have one that I don't own, but that I very much want to read, and that is Wicked. So at the time of filming this video, Wicked literally came out yesterday. I have not been able to see it yet. I'm seeing it in a couple days, but I loved Wicked Part 1. It was honestly amazing, and I rewatched it just the other day, and it was just as good the second time. So I have heard that the book is very different from the movie, and liking the movie means in no way you will like the book. But I would like to read the book, and I would like to read the book mainly just to see how different it is and how much they've changed. So I have no guarantee that I will like this book despite liking the movie, but I think it'll be interesting just to see how different it is from the movie, because apparently it's quite different, and I don't know if that will bug me or if I'll enjoy that. So basically Wicked, for those of you who don't know, is a prequel story to The Wizard of Oz, and explains how Elphaba, so the Wicked Witch of the West, and Glinda, the Good Witch, knew each other when they were younger, and like how they became to be who they are. So I do not know if I'm gonna like this book, but I think I would very much like to read it to at least know. Next off, we have probably my biggest branch out of the year, and that is going to be I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. So this is an autobiography that Jeanette McCurdy wrote, and basically it's an autobiography about her time as a child actor in Nickelodeon and her relationship with her mum, and then after she kind of stepped out the spotlight and discovered therapy and all that. I read the Matthew Perry biography and I really liked it, and so I thought, well, I don't read lots of non-fiction, but I would like to, and I feel like autobiographies are a good way to go, because then I'll have already a partial interest because I know at least the people who write them. The next book that I would like to read next year is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. So this book, I generally thought that it was a gay fantasy about a prince and then his bodyguards, so his sword catcher. But then I actually read the blurb of the book. It is not, I'm pretty sure it's heterosexual. The blurb doesn't even really mention the prince. It mentions the sword catcher. And Lynn Carster, she's a physician with magical powers, so she heals people, but she can't heal her best friend. So yes, I'm pretty sure it's actually a love story between Kate and Lynn. But yes, I was disappointed by that, but I still like to read it because I still think it's an interesting story. And at the moment there are 2 books out of the series, and I think there are going to be 3. I think. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. Next up, we have Dark Rise by C.S. Pacat. And basically, this is another book that it was kind of like, I want to read it because I couldn't find it. Every time I went to the bookshop, I'd have a look to see if they had it, and they never had this one, they always had the second one in the series. And then I went just the other day, just last week, and they had it. They had the first one, and I was like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? Like, the one time I go to the bookshop with no money and no intention of buying anything, you have the book that I've been looking for like all year. It was a joke. It was not a funny joke though. In this, heroes and villains of a long forgotten war are reborn and begin to draw new battle lines. It's apparently an epic fantasy. You know I love me an epic fantasy. And so our main character is Will, who is a dock boy on the run from the people who killed his mother, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna be, yeah, some kind of chosen one who's gonna fight against these old heroes and villains. But yeah, so I don't really know much about this series. It was kind of just, it became, you know, the grass always green on the other side. It was a book that I couldn't get, so I really wanted to read it, and I think it's really just a case of that. So I figured, why not put it on my 26 for 2026, because I do think I would enjoy it. I do love me a high stakes epic fantasy. Just having read the blurb of the second book, I'm pretty sure it's gay. I'm definitely reading that book. A gay epic fantasy. There aren't enough of those, and I would love to read more. There you go, bumped up to the top of the TBR. So another one that I want to read, I don't know what book we're on anymore, I've lost track, is Blue Sisters by Coco Malors. I am from a sisterhood of 4, and in this book there are 4 sisters, and there aren't a lot of stories that are centered on like 4 sisters. And I do know it is obviously like one of the sisters is dead, and so the 3 others, like, they're estranged and they get back together for the funeral, so it's obviously a happy book. But I don't know, I think it could be interesting to read about another group of 4 sisters, much like me and my sisters. Yeah, so basically it just follows them as they meet back up for their sister's funeral after having not seen each other for years. I mean, apparently it's a really good book. It's very heartwarming, and I think it could be quite sad because obviously they go back for one of their sister's funerals, but sometimes you just need a good, like, sad grown-up book. My next book, which is also a non-fantasy book, there's a surprising amount of them on this list, it's shocking, and that is The Favourites by Lane Fargo. So this is about I think this will be interesting because it's a little bit like Evelyn Hugo in that it's retelling the story and the scandals of 2 famous people, not real famous people, fake, fictional famous people. But I loved Evelyn Hugo, and so I do think this kind of book is something I enjoy. And it's basically set in the world of figure skating. So you have this figure skating duo who back in the day were like the creme de la creme, and they were a couple, but then something happened that they both then broke up and stopped figure skating. Then at the 10-year anniversary of that incident, an unauthorised documentary is started, and while Kat, the woman who was part of the figure skating duo, doesn't want anything to do with it, she basically joins it because she wants the real story to be told. She doesn't want other people telling her story and like scandalising it and saying things that surely aren't true. And so it's basically recounting that, and that just seems very interesting, and I would love to read that. Next up, we have a book that I did want to read this year but I never got around to, and that is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. So my main intrigue in this is that it's a King Arthur retelling, and I love King Arthur legends and retellings, and then I love retellings in general, so this is literally right up my alley. So basically we follow Bree Matthews, who after her mum dies goes to university and sees something she's not supposed to see and discovers that there's a magical world out there. At the moment there are 3 books out, and I don't know how many are being planned, but I don't know, it just feels like a really interesting series that a lot of people, I've never seen anyone say anything bad about that series. I will gladly read any King Arthur retelling anyone offers me. Next up, we have another fantasy series, of course, and that is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. So I'm pretty sure that this is a sapphic fantasy series, so love that. And we follow Princess Milani and Priya, who works as a servant in the castle, and apparently a ruthless princess and a powerful priestess come together to rewrite the fate of an empire in this fiercely and unapologetically feminist tale of endurance and revolution set against a gorgeous, unique, magical world. I do love me a sapphic fantasy, I do love me a fantasy with female main characters, but I just feel like this could be very interesting. I feel like it could be a fun trilogy. Next up we have another trilogy, another fantasy trilogy. Who's surprised at this point? Honestly, who is surprised? And that is The Jade City by Fonda Lee. So this is another book that I've had my eye on for a while now. I've been considering reading this series all year pretty much. So basically in this, Jade is like some kind of magical, you can use it to enhance your magical powers, and so the main family, the Cowell family. They're kind of like, I guess, the mafia of this place where jade is such a commodity, and so they obviously control the jade. But then a new drug emerges that lets anyone use jade and its properties, and so I guess a fight breaks out between the Cowell family and then whoever's launching this new drug. I'm not really sure as to the plot of it, but it just sounds very interesting, and it does kind of give these violent delights in that there was also a new thing that erupted that let people have magical powers, and there are two rival families, and yeah, it feels like a high stakes fantasy, and you know I love me a high stakes fantasy. Next up we have The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. So this is her latest book. I've read 3 of her other books and I absolutely love them. They were all 4+ stars for me. She is one of my top authors. Hopefully I will be getting this book for Christmas because I asked for it. So it's not on my current physical TBR, but hopefully by the end of the month it will be. And basically it's kind of a time traveling book, I believe. So you have a woman who is like a legendary knight and a boy who is telling her story. I'm gonna read the little blurb thing because I haven't read this book, I don't know how to describe it. It begins where it ends, beneath the yew tree, a girl not yet a knight and a boy without a story. It is where she pulls a sword from the heartwood and becomes a legend. And it is where, more than 1,000 years later, he will find her and lose her, and find her and lose her again. It is where a new story will be written, but whose will it be? So this seems, from what I can read, like a King Arthur reimagining. So I've got 2 of those on this list, which I'm very happy about. And it seems like it's time travel and trying to change your story, so it will probably link fate into that as well, and I find that so fascinating. Like the debate about like fate and destiny and undoable and time travel and all that. It just seems very, very interesting, and I know that I will love it because I love Alex E. Harrow books. So another one that I want to read, The Goldfinch. It's a bit shabby, but I got it in a second-hand shop for like £2, and this is a big book, so again this for £2 was a score. Basically this book, it was really a case of I'd seen like 2 pins about it on Pinterest and they seemed interesting, and then I saw a second-hand shop for £2 and I was like, you know what, and I bought it. But I don't know if it's necessarily a book that I would pick up now. But because I own it, and I do think it will be at least interesting, I'm making myself read it this year. That way, at least I'll know for sure, and it will stop just sitting on my shelf, neglected, and I can either unhaul it if I don't like it, or keep it if I do enjoy it. Basically, it follows Thea, who survives a catastrophe when he's younger that leaves him parentless. It follows him through his life, and basically feels connected to his mother through a painting, which I imagine is this painting, The Goldfinch. And basically this painting somehow leads him into the criminal underworld. I don't really understand it. But yeah, so basically just, I haven't read this because it is quite daunting. It's quite a big book. It's Donna Tartt, so it's probably going to be quite a heavy book. Not the easiest book to read. And yeah, this is the one book that I'm like making myself read. Let's hope I enjoy it. Otherwise this is going to be a slow 800 pages. Coming up to the last few, we have Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. So that is the current last book in the Magnolia Park's series. I know there are going to be more coming, but they haven't been written yet. This month I'm going to be reading Magnolia Park's, which is the first book. And basically I would like to get this series completed, so I put this one. It is a negotiable one though, because if I read this in December and do not like it, then I will take it off my list and replace it with something else. But because I have not yet read this, I'm keeping it on the list for now. Magnolia Park's follows... It's basically been described to me as Gossip Girl, but set in England, in London. And I really liked Gossip Girl. It's kind of messy drama that you just need. And so I feel Magnolia Parks will also be fun. I recently read Never by Jessa Hastings and I absolutely love that. So I don't know, I'm feeling fairly positive about this book series at the moment. I know it's got a trope in it that I do not like, but I'm hoping because I know in advance, I'll be better prepared, and I hope it was done right at least, so that it won't bug me too much. But we'll see. Next up we have, let me just get this out. That is The Miseducation of Cameron Post. I was supposed to read it in June, but I just never did because my reading slump hit. But basically this, I watched the trailer for the movie a couple years back and I thought it was really interesting, and so I found out it was a book and I got the book, and I do think it will be interesting. So this follows Cameron Post. So her parents die and she goes to live with her conservative aunt in Montana, and she has to hide the fact that she is a lesbian. Her aunt finds out that she's lesbian and sends her to a correctional facility, or whatever they were called, basically somewhere to stop her from being gay, which isn't possible because that's not how it works. But I think this would be a really interesting story, and I think it would also be hard to read. Obviously it's not a happy story if she gets sent to a correctional facility, but I'm pretty sure it ends well. At least I hope it does. The trailer for the movie looked positive. But I don't know, I think it would just be, again, a different kind of book than I usually read. A bit more heavy. It's about things that have happened to people in real life, which is horrible. But yeah, it's basically about self-discovery and self-exploration and self-acceptance, especially, I'd imagine, because being small town Montana, it's very hard to be self-accepting if you're queer. And then we have our final 2 books on this list. So the 25th book on this list is the Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. So again, I have ahhed about getting this book and reading this book over this past year. This series is a dark fantasy, and from what I've heard, it is different than most dark fantasy in that it's the main female character who's like thousands of years old and is morally grey, whereas usually it's like the main male character. So already just from that, I appreciate this book because I do like it when you take the patriarchy and flip it on its head like that. Again, I'm not really sure what happens in this book. I just know that it's apparently a really good series. At the moment, there are 4 books out, I believe. I think the 4th one just came out, and it's a dark fantasy series. I believe it's urban fantasy.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
So we have our main character who thousands of years ago made a deal with, not the devil, but like an evil person to keep her sister alive. And so now she's like indebted to him and has to do whatever he asks. I'm not really sure what happens outside of that, but that's like the original setup of the story. I think it'd just be interesting and it'd be fun to see the typical trope of old man, young woman flipped on its head. And then the final book that I have on this list is a book that I bought quite recently but that I cannot wait to read, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. And so this is a vampire romance, which I don't really care for. I had my vampire phase when I was younger. It's really more just for the story itself, because I found out that this is an enemies to lovers to enemies, and I love me a good enemies to lovers to enemies. So the second I found out that that was what this was, I bought it and I'm now really wanting to read it. But basically it follows the adopted human daughter of the vampire king, Araya. Basically she wants to, because she's a human in a world of vampires, she wants to become something more, and so she enters the Kajari, which is a tournament held by the goddess of death. And so yeah, so it has, I guess, trial elements. Oh, they're little drawings. So I just discovered that there are little chapter drawings, which I love. That's very pretty. But yeah, so this is the first duology in, I think there are currently 3 duologies, interconnected duologies, with them each has their own little novella. And so I love me an interconnected world very, very much, getting new characters, new perspectives. So I just think this will be a really fun series to start, especially if it's an enemies to lovers to enemies, and especially if it's done well. So yeah, so those are the 26 books that I hope to read next year. I hope to get through at least 15 of them. Minimum 15, that's the goal I'm going to set for myself. I'm not going to force myself to read all 26 if I just don't have time or I don't have the desire to, but I will read at least 15. That way I'm past half and I can check off at least ones on my physical TBR. But no, so this was a fun video to make. It gives me an idea of like books I want to read for next year, so that way I kind of have a plan about it. Make choosing my TBR a lot easier. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.